Joined by Jim Gazzale, who's a lead writer for Legal Sports Report.
It seems like a lot of these horses are evenly matched. They all have relatively similar abilities, and each of them has put that on display at various points from the beginning of the year through. We saw Dornoch winning the Belmont here a couple of weeks ago.
I landed on Brightwork too. I think the return to the sprint distance is right up her alley. Ortiz has been red hot. 5 for 8.
Jorge Abreu, who has a lot of New York breds in his stable. I caught up with him earlier to talk about Venti Valentine, stakes winner at 2, 3, and 4.
What we've seen over the last handful of years is just some kind of wild fluctuations in those odds, in that pari-mutuel odds system that has been quite frustrating for horse players.
We were talking about him on the Derby Trail early on. And then, it just seemed like that as the distances got longer, just seemed to be not in his wheelhouse.
Top contenders for the Belmont this year, as I'm about to get sprayed by this truck watering the track.
First onto the seed with some big figures, and then, kind of leveled off in the last couple of starts. But they must see something that perhaps you do too, running her against some pretty stiff competition. I just think he towers over this field and is probably one of my stronger opinions looking throughout this whole card.
Back outside Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks winning trainer Ken McPeak's barn on the Oklahoma track at Saratoga on an early and hot Wednesday morning.
I think Society kicks away and wins this in front-running fashion. Come out of the Lecomte and get thrown into that grade 2, which was a pretty salty field, and, represented himself well. So I think even cutting back a little bit further to the 7 furlongs in the Woody Stevens is going to, hit him square in the eyes. In Showcase's first start back in July, he was sitting right off the leader in second, and was able to make a nice overpowering move and draw away.
Now, of course, Tom Durkin called his fair share of Triple Crown attempts, 9 in fact. Had every opportunity to call a Triple Crown winner, and the year he retires, it finally happens with American Pharoah.
I landed on the 2 Showcase here. Just jumping off the page, if you're going to give me 6-1 on the Pletcher Irad tandem, I feel like it's just a must play. Though that said, I do think he's going to come way down off of that morning line. So my thought process going into this race was that it looked like there's a lot of early speed in here. You look at the running lines, a lot of these horses in their last race or at some point in any of their career races, which is quite limited, they have been on the lead. So given that, I was looking for a horse that was just going to come and sit right off of it. And in Showcase's first start back in July, he was sitting right off the leader in second, and was able to make a nice overpowering move and draw away. Has a good late pace figure on Brisnet. All that rolled into a nice little package, 6-1 on the morning line. Like I said, I'm guessing that's probably going to come down maybe 3-1, 4-1. But was still a bit surprised that morning line was so high. So I landed on Showcase. Yeah, I landed on Brightwork too. I think the return to the sprint distance is right up her alley. Ortiz has been red hot, 5 for 8. She was scratched from the test, like you said, John. I was excited to bet her that day. I thought she was sitting on a sneaky good effort there, and unfortunately we didn't get to see her. If you throw out those 2 route races, she has a little bit of a back class edge against these print track. Not really going too far out on a limb here. This horse is going to be favored at 2-1. But I did think that the numbers are consistent forwardly placed, like we were talking about, like what we saw on the towards the end of that Whitney Day card. Yeah, the horse has run his best races at Saratoga too. He's 1 for 5 lifetime, but 3 times in the money there. I just think he towers over this field and is probably one of my stronger opinions looking throughout this whole card, mostly because I think he's going to be forwardly placed, and the way that track has been playing when it's been wet and even really when it's been dry, I think he's going to be in a good position to win, albeit at short odds. I'm against Fava here. I think she's just had it her way all day the last couple of starts, and she absolutely bodied Society in deep stretch in that last race at Churchill Downs. Insanely, the stewards did not look at it, which was just absolutely nuts. I think Society kicks away and wins this in front-running fashion.
Hey everybody, Jim Gazzale checking in from the Oklahoma training track in Saratoga on a bright, early Monday morning. Getting ready 2.5 weeks out or so from the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival, and we decided to check in with a couple of the top contenders for the Belmont this year, as I'm about to get sprayed by this truck watering the track. And we spoke to Chad Brown about Sierra Leone, second place finisher in the Kentucky Derby. He trained on Saturday here across the Oklahoma track, and here's what Chad had to say about that work.
He works super, so I'm really happy with the way he's bounced out of Kentucky Derby, and it's very strong work, and he continues to really be in good form. A couple more works and some routine stuff in between, and hopefully just keep him happy and healthy.
Obviously, Chad very pleased with how that horse is doing. He said he's going to put another couple of works into him over the next couple of weeks in the lead up to the Belmont Stakes up here at Saratoga. The other contender that we'll likely see in the starting gate for the Belmont Stakes is Fierceness. Finished a disappointing race in the Kentucky Derby, had everything his own way to the top of the stretch, and then just kind of faded and didn't fire in that last quarter mile. Here he is in his barn earlier this morning, eating some hay, looking to be relaxing. Todd Fletcher was out on the Oklahoma training track earlier this morning as well, watching a string of other horses get over the track. More recently, Tuscan Gold in the Preakness. I asked Chad how he thought that effort went and what the future might hold for Tuscan Gold.
He just didn't handle the track, unfortunately. I could tell early on. It was just so disappointing into the first turn. He was into a drive and the stick already. So I was hopefully he'd handle it, but he didn't. I'm going to just regroup with that horse. And it's not impossible if he bounced out of there good to try him right back in the Belmont, because even though he came on for 4th, I don't think he really did much running. He just really handled the track that well. So we'll see how he trains up here.
Now, a couple of the other horses that performed on Kentucky Derby weekend for Chad, Chili Flag and Top Connor in the Pat Day Mile. Here's what Chad had to say about those two.
Yeah, he lost all position when he broke that or got squeezed from the gate, whatever it was, and really wasn't the trip we were looking for. But, he's had a couple hard races in a row. I think we'll regroup just a little bit with him and try to find an easier spot with him, get him back in good form again. I still have high hopes for him for his career, so time for maybe just a little bit of a reset. Chili Flag and Coppice were only nose apart there in the Distaff Turf Mile. They're both pointed to the Just a Game. There
you have it, a couple weeks out, like I said, from the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival up here at Saratoga. We'll be on the grounds the next couple of weeks, checking in, all the coverage on PastTheWire.com, Past the Wire TV on YouTube. Hey everybody, Jim Gazzale here at the Oklahoma training track in Saratoga on a nice, bright, sunny morning, as we've got a couple of horses walking behind me, walking on and off the track here. New York bred stakes on the Sunday of the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival up here at Saratoga. One trainer, Jorge Abreu, who has a lot of New York breds in his stable. I caught up with him earlier to talk about Venti Valentine, stakes winner at 2, 3, and 4, how she's kind of began her 5-year-old season here and what we can expect from her as she's pointing to the critical eye on Sunday.
The plan is to run her in the critical eye. She came out of the race really well. She's been a good horse for me since day one, and she always tried to show up. She only had that one bad race in the Oaks. We put her line over that. But every time we run her, she shows up.
Now, of course, that critical eye Sunday of the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival up here in early June, about 2 weeks from now, 2.5 weeks from now. And the interesting thing about Venti Valentine is that after that last place finish in the Kentucky Oaks 2 years ago, she kind of got turned back in distance, was competing at 7 furlongs, even upwards to a mile. She even won the Johnstone Mile up here at Saratoga last summer in her 4-year-old season. And Jorge told me that he's seeing signs from her now suggesting that she wants to go a little bit longer. So I asked him what specifically she has shown him in the mornings around the barn that would suggest that she wants to go a little bit more distance of ground.
With age, she's just losing a little bit of that momentum and the speed, early speed that she used to have before. Now she looks like she wants to go two-turn. Even in her breezes, like she'll breeze. She's not breezing as good as she was before, but she have a really good long gallop out. Before she used to do everything perfect, like good 5A, out 3/4, out 7A. Now she's been just okay in the 5A work, but the gallop out being really, really well.
So there you have it. Looking forward to some great New York bred racing on Sunday of Belmont Stakes weekend up here at Saratoga. Hey everybody, Jim Gazzale for Past the Wire TV, back on the Oklahoma training track outside Ken McPeak's barn here, checking in on Kentucky Derby winner Mystic Dan and Kentucky Oaks winner Torpedo Anna. Both of them got over the Oklahoma training track early this morning. Mystic Dan, as has been reported for the last week since he's been on the scene here in Saratoga, just full of energy. Now, we are still awaiting a decision from trainer Ken McPeak about where both of these horses may or may not be pointed for the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival up here next weekend. Obviously, Mystic Dan targeting the Belmont Stakes. Torpedo Anna also perhaps targeting the Belmont Stakes or the Acorn at Grade 1 for fillies on Friday of the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival weekend. Now, John Stetton caught up with Kentucky Derby winner and Kentucky Oaks winning rider Brian Hernandez to talk about that potential decision and where he might end up should both Mystic Dan and Torpedo Anna end up in the Belmont. And I think his answer provides a little bit additional insight as to where we might see both of these horses end up during the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival.
We are now joined by Jim Gazzale, who's a lead writer for Legal Sports Report, to help educate us a little bit on what is just. We have breaking news here. Many of you probably heard the news that FanDuel and NYRA couldn't come to an agreement. TVG part of that as well. And so if you had FanDuel as your betting app of choice, you were going to be able to play the horses here at Saratoga. Of course, NYRA Bets is popular on the grounds here as well. But Jim, that has changed. Why?
Yeah, so this morning there was an agreement between FanDuel and NYRA. There was a little bit of a dispute in the last week or so, which prevented NYRA races being available on the FanDuel Sportsbook, FanDuel Racing app, and TVG, like you said. But this morning they were finally able to come to an arrangement. From my understanding, FanDuel made a sizable contribution to the NYRA Foundation, which helps support nonprofit organizations tied to thoroughbred racing, as well as a lot of the initiatives for the backstretch workers. So FanDuel comes through with a big donation to the NYRA Foundation, which got everybody on the same page and ready in time for first post today, with those Saratoga races being back on all of those FanDuel properties.
Yeah, some people would say deadline spur action, right? And that's exactly the case here today. We'll give equal time. NYRA Bets, if you haven't signed up for NYRA Bets yet, it's now a $250 play as you sign up for the first time for this particular meet. With sports betting so prevalent, What are you seeing in the industry in terms of a shift, if any, among the age of bettors?
Yeah, it's been a slow sort of progression. I think as we look at the horse racing industry, we all kind of see the age of the average player. But now with a lot of the sports books getting involved in the horse betting space, like we were just talking about FanDuel, DraftKings has its own horse betting app, Bet365 as well. A lot of these sports books are getting involved. And speaking with some of the operators over the last couple of weeks, they're seeing a positive trend in that sports bettor, which, as we know, is generally a lot younger than the horse player. They're telling me that they're seeing a positive trend in that crossover between sports and horses, bringing in a bit of a younger generation to the horses. I was speaking to some folks at NYRA earlier this week, and they told me that they're hoping that they start to see that, but obviously the summer is that big sort of capture point, that customer acquisition point for that younger audience, that younger demographic here in the summer months at Saratoga.
Let me ask you a horse racing question while I've got you here. Jim Gazzale from Legal Sports Report, a lead writer there for us. DraftKings has attached its name to the Travers Stakes this year, so you did mention them as being part of the horse racing game. When we talk about the Travers and look at what the potential field, we had 3 different horses win the Triple Crown races, 6th straight year that has happened. And so some people might say, well, there's no star when we reach the Midsummer Derby. A bettor might say, that makes it more fun when I go to the window or just use the app. How do you view things as we get closer to the Travers and the contenders?
Yeah, I think there's 2 ways to look at it, right? You can say, maybe these horses aren't very good. There's no big standout. I take the opposite approach, and I say it seems like a lot of these horses are evenly matched. They all have relatively similar abilities, and each of them has put that on display at various points from the beginning of the year through. We saw Dornoch winning the Belmont here a couple of weeks ago. So I think it makes for good betting opportunities throughout the summer. You have the Jim Dandy coming up in a couple weeks, and then, of course, the Travers at the end of the summer. I think it's a good opportunity, and it's fun, good debate over who's going to win, and, you know, you have those conversations from here for the next 6 weeks.
And maybe a better chance to win a little bit of money. Jim, thanks so much.
Thanks, Chris.
Jim Gazzale from the Legal Sports Report with us here on News Channel 13, live at noon.